A very deflating homestand has finally come to an end. The Orioles lose 7 of 8 and are mopped at home by the Boston Red Sox. I'll recap the final game of the series and talk about the O's bullpen coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Friday, August 29th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap another Orioles close loss on this homestand. They fall 3-2 to the Red Sox on Thursday and are mopped in this 4-game series. I'll get you the 5 things you need to know from that one, including a solid Cade Povich start, some more hitting from the Jacksons, and the Orioles just not really hitting anywhere else in the big spots. Then we'll talk about the Orioles roster move from Thursday. They've got Shawn Dubin in, who made his Orioles debut, Roansy Contreras out, why they made that move after Contreras really shined in his Orioles debut on Wednesday night. And finally, we'll take a look at the bullpen. The pieces continue to be swapped. Another edition of the Orioles Bullpen Trust Power Rankings. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So we're starting this one with, unfortunately, another Orioles loss. Final score from Camden Yards on Thursday afternoon is the Boston Red Sox 3 and the Baltimore Orioles 2 for the second straight day. And it is officially a mop. The Orioles lose all 4 games of this series at home to the Red Sox after dropping 3 of 4 at home to the Astros in the previous series. They were playing a little bit better baseball. They went to Boston and swept them in the 2-game set. They were playing well. They'd won 6 of 7. Well, the Orioles lost 7 out of the 8 games on this homestand. They were already buried. It didn't matter. But now sitting at 60 and 74 on the season, they feel a little even further out of it than they were. But I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from this Orioles loss. And the first thing you need to know is, well, Cade Povich was fine, but I'm worried he's kind of not taking the next step. Now, you will certainly take the final line from Povich's start, especially when he's had such an up and down season. If he can give you a fairly consistent 5 innings, 2 runs, 7 hits, 5 Ks, no walks, 2 homers on 81 pitches. That is what Povich gave the Orioles against a good Red Sox lineup on Thursday afternoon. You know what? 5 innings, a 2-run ball, that gives the Orioles a chance to win the game. There have been some Povich starts this year where he didn't do that, so you would certainly take that from the 25-year-old left-hander. And there were good things to take away, right? The 2 runs were solo home runs in this game. Trevor Story and Rob Refsnyder each got one. Otherwise, really limited the damage despite 7 hits. You like to see that. 5 strikeouts versus 0 walks. That's great to see for Povich. Just his 3rd outing of the year without walking anyone. And it was the first time since May 6th that Povich did not issue a walk in a big league outing. That's a big positive. And look, the stuff itself was still looking good. It's just the location is not. And Thursday, he was kind of errant in a different way, right? It wasn't that he was missing out of the zone. He didn't walk anybody in 5 innings. What happened was he was missing with too many pitches into the middle of the plate. And he was lucky the Red Sox didn't capitalize more than they did with just the 2 solo homers. Just way too many offerings over the middle of the plate, especially with 2 strikes. I think there was an AB, I believe it was in the 3rd inning against Roman Anthony, where he attacked him with 2 really good pitches, got ahead 0-2 lefty-lefty, and then throws a sinker, not a bad pitch to go lefty-lefty, but throws it right down the middle, and Anthony lines a single into right field to lead off the inning. And Povich ended up putting up a 0 in that frame still, but you get a good left-handed hitter up 0-2 when you are Povich, you got to make a better pitch and finish him, and he just doesn't have the command right now, it seems, to do that. And what's been funny, kind of tracking his last 3 starts, 2 of them against the Astros and then this one against the Red Sox, his pure stuff ratings, right? Those are the ratings that look at just your pitch movement and the velocity and the arm angle and the shape of everything, not taking into account what happens on the pitch or the location of it. His pure stuff numbers have actually gone up over the last 3 starts. He's changed back to his original changeup. It's been better. The fastballs have been good. The sweeper's been moving well. He's thrown some really good curveballs. Like, his stuff has gone up. But the location plus number, which is also put together, you can see on FanGraphs, which kind of isn't just how many strikes you're throwing. It's more how many quality strikes you're throwing. How are those pitches kind of playing off each other? Are you throwing on the corners versus in the middle of the zone? Things like that. The location plus number has gone way down. It's never been great for Povich since he got to the big leagues last year, but it's gone down to like astronomical lows for him over the past 3 starts. So stuff getting better, location getting worse, and that leads to these very up and down outings that we've seen. And at this point, Povich has basically made 34 starts as a big leaguer between last year and this year. That is, just over, but right around a full MLB season. If you're in somebody's rotation from start to finish, you're going to make somewhere around these 34 starts. So you can kind of look at his stats at this point. He's got a 5+ ERA. The FIP is lower. He's gotten unlucky. Now, it's way too early to make a full judgment, right? That is one full big league season. He's still 25 because of injuries and the late call-up last year. He still hasn't been on a team for an entire year in the major leagues. There's still plenty of development to do, certainly for Cade Povich, and he has the mold of someone who can be a good big league starter, and we've seen him be a good big league starter at times. But I wanted him by this point, and the hip injury he had this year certainly slowed that timeline. I totally understand that. He missed a couple of months of this season, but with how awesome Povich was in September last year, how strongly he finished the 2024 season, I thought there could be room for another step forward. And that, again, we still got another month. Maybe he turns it on in September this year, just like he did last year. His next start will be in the month of September, but he hasn't taken that next step yet. And I'm at the point where Cade Povich will be really good starting pitching depth for this rotation to have next year. But if the Orioles get to spring training and Povich is one of their projected 5 starters in the rotation, they have failed. I'm not going to say it wouldn't work out, but they have failed as an offseason because he hasn't taken that next step yet to kind of lock down a position like that. Second thing you need to know from Thursday's loss is that the Jackson 3 for the Orioles were in the lineup together again for the 7th time, and they put on a show offensively, starting with Jackson Holliday, who went 2 for 5 with a single and a double, his first multi-hit game since August 17th, and just his second of this month. His bat has certainly slowed down really since the All-Star break. I'd like for him to catch some fire at the end of the season. Then there's Jeremiah Jackson. He's been red hot, 2 for 5 with a single and had an RBI double that tied the game at 2 in the 5th inning off of Garrett Crochet. Melanie Newman had a tweet that Jackson saw 19 total pitches in his 3 plate appearances against Crochet, who might win the AL Cy Young Award this year. And Crochet, who is leading baseball in strikeouts this year, makes everybody look uncomfortable. He did strike Jackson out once, but Jackson looked really comfortable against him. And Melanie also said that Jackson's been dealing with an injury to his left hand. He had it wrapped up in the pregame. He's feeling some pain, but he's still playing the field and he's still hitting. He's now on an 8-game hitting streak, overall hitting .329 with an .814 OPS since being called up after the trade deadline. It's also a 52% hard hit percentage, which is elite. We still got to see more, but I really think the Orioles have found their Ramon Arias replacement in Jeremiah Jackson. And then Alex Jackson got the start behind the plate. Samuel Basallo got the day off. Solo home run off Garrett Crochet, took a 2-2 fastball into the bullpen to tie the game at 1, his 4th long ball with the Orioles. And just like with Jeremiah Jackson, I think Alex Jackson is earning a roster spot as the 3rd catcher for the Orioles next year. I think with the way they'll probably split up the catching time between Rutschman and Basallo, and the way they'll probably want to have Rutschman and Basallo in the lineup together a lot next season, that means it's helpful to carry a 3rd catcher on the roster. I think at this point, Alex Jackson has got to be that guy. Third thing you need to know from Thursday is that unfortunately, there wasn't much else offense from the Orioles besides the 3 Jacksons. The at-bats they took as a whole against Garrett Crochet were honestly pretty good. That's better than a lot of offenses have looked against Crochet this season. Emmanuel Rivera got his first start in a while and had 2 hits. You like to see that from him, but it was really a struggle to score runs, and it's really been a struggle to score lately. The Orioles scored 7 total runs in this series, and they have 10 runs in their last 5 games. They're 1-4 in that stretch. That's 2 runs per game. That is not going to win many baseball games. And they gave themselves some chances. They got some base runners, but they went 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position on Thursday. The only hit was that Jeremiah Jackson RBI double that tied the game in the 5th. I mean, and that gave the Orioles 2nd and 3rd with no outs in a 2-2 game in the 5th with a good part of the order up 3-4-5. Gunnar strikes out, and then Mountcastle lines into a double play and the inning was over. They used Dylan Beavers in a big spot, first and second, 2 outs in the 8th, down by 1 as a pinch hitter, but he struck out as the Orioles couldn't get it done in that spot. They had first and third with 1 out earlier in the game in the 4th, I believe, couldn't get it done. They got the chances. It's another offensive slump with kind of a different group of characters now. And the fourth thing you need to know from the loss is that the base running did not help the Orioles score either. That spot I mentioned in the 5th, second and third, no outs. Gunnar strikes out. Then it comes up Ryan Mountcastle, good hitter against lefties against Crochet, hits a screaming liner to shortstop. And you got to give credit to Trevor Story. Made a fantastic diving catch that saved 2 runs. It was second and third. That would have been a 2-run single to put the Orioles up 4-2. Completely changes that game. But not only that, he then turns around, throws to the third, doubles off Jackson Holliday for the final out of the inning and the double play. Because Holliday was like 2/3 of the way to home plate by the time that throw went to third base. Now, obviously, with the Red Sox infield in, the contact play was on for the Orioles. What that means is as soon as you see contact on the ground, you're sprinting for home and you're basically putting the pressure on the defense to make a perfect throw and perfect tag to home plate. But on that play, all you have to do as the base runner at third base is just make sure it's a grounder. As soon as you see that ball hit into the ground, you are off and running. Holliday's got good speed, and you hope you make it to home. Now, sometimes you can get caught on this play when, like, if you hit a ground ball back to the pitcher, you're done. Or if it's one of those low line drives where maybe the shortstop like catches it, right off his shoestrings. And you're kind of looking around, you're like, did it hit the grass? Did it not? Where do I go? That's where you can get doubled up. And it's really nothing bad you did. It can just be bad luck. We actually saw that a couple of weekends ago when the Orioles in that 12-inning loss they had against the Astros. Remember Ryan Mountcastle moved the runner over, and then Dylan Beavers hit into a double play to end, I believe, the 10th inning when Luis Vasquez got doubled off at third base. The contact play was on, and Beavers hit a line drive to second, and Ramon Arias caught it with his glove right on the ground. And to the naked eye watching, I thought he had one-hopped it and trapped it. So Luis Vasquez took off for home. Turns out Arias had kind of shoestring caught it off the ground in the air and threw to third base for the double play. That's just a bad luck play with the contact play on. This line drive that Mountcastle hit was not particularly close to the ground. Like, Story had to dive, but this thing was chest level or above. If you are Jackson Holliday, and Jeremiah Jackson was a little too far off second base, but he mostly froze on the liner and did the correct thing. Holliday just took off for home and, of course, made it an easy double play once Story made the diving catch. And you just got to see the ball hit the ground, right? And if you're Holliday, you have good enough speed to make up for that extra split second to wait for it to hit the ground. And again, it's not like it was a low liner. That's a ball where you're taught from the time you're 6 to just freeze on the line drive, even if the contact play is on. Just kind of another instance of bad base running from this Orioles team. And they made another out on the bases later, right? They were trying to rally Aroldis Chapman, who hasn't allowed a hit to the last 40 batters he's faced, had 2 saves in the series already, was not available with the Red Sox leading 3-2 going into the bottom of the 9th. So they went to another lefty in Steven Matz to get the save. Hasn't really been a closer in his career. And Dylan Carlson leads off the 9th with a double down the line. You're like, all right, we got the tying run in scoring position. Let's see what we can do here. Alex Jackson hits a hard ground ball up the middle. Carlson takes off for third, and Story throws him out at third base for the first out of the inning. Now, it looked like a pretty ugly base running play. To be fair to Dylan Carlson, I think it was generally the right read. Now, there's some nuance here, but you got to make these split-second decisions. But generally, as a baseball player growing up, if you are on second base with less than 2 outs, here is how you're taught to read a ground ball to the shortstop. If the ground ball is to your left, meaning, you're facing home plate, it's to your left, it's closer to second base, you take off for third, because generally the play is behind you. If the play is made, it's going to be made up the middle, and most of the time the shortstop is just going to throw to first base. If the ball is to your right, which means the shortstop's going to field it closer to third base than you are, you retreat back to second, because that should be an easy throw for the shortstop to make to third, and you don't want to make an out at third base. To be fair to Carlson, the ball was hit to his left. It was hit closer to second base. Story was shaded up the middle, and it was hit hard enough where it was just a bad combination of breaks there for the Orioles. It was still a risky throw for Story to make to third. He could have easily just gotten the sure out at first, but let the tying run get 90 feet away. If he throws that ball away, it could be disaster. The run scores, you got 2 on, you take away an out. He throws to third, makes a good enough throw. They tag out Carlson for the first out. So maybe a little bit of feel. You got to know better on where Story is behind you, where he's playing, how hard the ball is hit, but kind of the base level of that decision made sense. The Holliday one is just like, he was at home plate already. I get the contact play. but that was a high-ish line drive. The fundamentals on the base paths, I love being aggressive, but it's not too much aggression. It's almost just like not knowing the situation at times this year. It's something I'd love to see the Orioles get cleaned up. It's not the end of the world, but you'd love to see it change a little bit heading into next season. And the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 3-2 loss to the Red Sox on Thursday afternoon. They completed the mop. That's the 4-game sweep for the Sox over the Orioles. The inexperienced bullpen, they can't be asked to really keep doing this with no offensive support. Now, once Povich came out of the game, Kade Strowd came in. He was great, 6 up, 6 down with 2 strikeouts in the 6th and 7th innings to keep it a 2-2 game. Rico Garcia came in the 8th, did allow the go-ahead run, but his stuff looked great. And then Shawn Dubin made his Orioles debut and threw a 1-2-3 ninth to keep it at 3-2. It's just a lot of pressure to put on some of these inexperienced pitchers, and they've done fairly well, I think, in these spots. But if you're not scoring, you're putting extra and extra and extra pressure on them, and they're bound to give up a run every once in a while with the state of this current bullpen. It's more about a learning experience, trying to find relievers for next year. And that's the pressure the O's just deflated offense is putting on them right now. Garcia gives up the winning run, and the Orioles lose the game and are mopped at home and go 1-7 on the homestand. There were also some roster moves, some roster news coming before Thursday's game. We'll get to those coming up right after this. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Upside. Hey, Orioles fans, are you still paying full price for gas? You got to stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. And use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already need. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. So don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app right now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers may vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. So after the Orioles' loss on Thursday afternoon, I'm going to talk about some roster moves they made before the game. But before we get to that and something else to talk about here at the Locked On Podcast Network, we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Just go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out here at Locked On Podcasts and at Locked On Orioles. So a roster move that the O's made before Thursday's loss. It was one that I kind of previewed and thought would happen on both, I think, Wednesday and Thursday's episode of the show this week. Make sure to go back and check those out as well if you have not already. But Shawn Dubin was activated to the Orioles roster, claimed off waivers from the Astros on Monday, but wasn't able to report to the team until Thursday. So that's when he was put on the active roster. 29-year-old right-handed pitcher, solid middle reliever, did a full breakdown on him as a reliever, what he could bring to the Orioles on Thursday's episode. So make sure to go back and check that one out. But he did make his Orioles debut in the top of the ninth with the O's down 3-2 on Thursday. 1-2-3 inning on 9 pitches, got 3 ground outs. It was pretty quick. We saw sinker, curveball, sweeper, and cutter out of the 9 pitches that Dubin threw. So far, so good with the Orioles for Shawn Dubin. But to get Dubin on the roster, they, of course, had to make room. And Roansy Contreras was designated for assignment to make room for Dubin. Now, Contreras, who was called up on Wednesday, had been in AAA with the Orioles all season, has sub-4 ERA, came up on Wednesday to kind of be the bulk pitcher after Dietrich Enns was the opener, and Contreras was great. Gave the Orioles 4 1/3 scoreless innings in bulk relief in his Orioles debut. Only 25 years old, former top prospect. His stuff looked good, but he is also out of minor league options, which means to take him off the roster, you had to put him on waivers. Now, it was a tough move to make, right? The Orioles still had 3 relievers in Yennier Cano, Kade Strowd, and Grant Wolfram, who had minor league options remaining, which means any of those guys could have just been freely sent to AAA, staying in the organization, and you could have held on to Contreras for a little bit longer. But I understand the Orioles' reasoning for not doing that. I mean, Contreras, after that outing, even if they kept him, was going to be moved to the bullpen because his next time around, Tyler Wells was going to be ready to take his rotation spot. But because Contreras just threw, 80 some pitches on Wednesday as essentially a starter, he was going to be in the bullpen, but not be available for the next 4 days. You were going to be down a reliever, down from 8 guys to 7 guys in the pen with no off days coming up for the next 4 days. It's not a great spot for your team to be in, especially with the current state of the Orioles pitching staff. Now, they didn't have to call up Contreras in the first place, right? Cade Povich could have started on Wednesday on regular rest, but it seems like the Orioles made the move to bring up Contreras because they just wanted to push everybody back one day and get them a little bit of rest. And it feels like no matter what Contreras was going to do, and it probably couldn't have gone any better than it did for Roansy on Wednesday night, he was probably going to get DFA'd after that no matter what to make room for Dubin. Now, if he clears waivers, he could stay in the organization, but still would become a free agent after this season. And it could have been just kind of a thank you outing for Contreras. Say, hey, thanks for eating so many innings in AAA this year. We're going to call you up. We're going to give you kind of a MLB audition to pitch for other teams. And when you hit waivers or free agency, maybe it'll make another team want you and put you on the big league roster and help out with your career. They did something similar with that at the end of last season with Tucker Davidson, who had been really good all year in AAA, kind of a veteran lefty, called him up for one outing in late September as kind of a little showcase for him as he was about to hit free agency and try and sign on with a different team. Now, if he wasn't called up from AAA, right, he'd just sit in AAA and still become a free agent at the end of the year. Like, if Contreras hadn't been called up on Wednesday, nobody would have cared about this anyway, but now he comes up, has a good outing, and then goes on waivers, and I'm sure everybody's freaking out at this point. But the O's could totally bring him back for 2026, whether he gets claimed by another team. This was a guy who's been DFA'd, 8 times in the past year and a half. Like, this is a guy who's going to end up back on waivers again at some point. So if another team does actually claim him, there's a good chance the O's could still get him back later. Also, if no one claims him or he gets waived by another team, like, he's going to end up being a free agent at the end of this year. So you would think he had a good time pitching for Baltimore this year, and the chance they gave him, the O's could just go back and re-sign him in the offseason, get him back into the system, and see if he could be a piece for 2026. I don't really think this is like the end of Contreras and, oh no, he threw 4 scoreless innings. Why would you get rid of this guy? Like, he'll probably be back if the Orioles want him back. They will find a way. And quite frankly, the decision was probably the Orioles just liked Shawn Dubin better than Roansy Contreras. And I know there's recency bias of what Contreras looked like, but nobody really cared when he was down there for 5 months in AAA. And also the take of, hey, we like Dubin better than Contreras, not really that surprising. One of them, Shawn Dubin, has been in the majors, in the bullpen for a good team for the past 2 years. The other one, Roansy Contreras, has been stuck in AAA with a bad team. And when he's been in the big leagues before that, he was not good. It's not that crazy to say we think Shawn Dubin is better than Roansy Contreras if you're choosing between the two of them. And that's some of the reasons why the Orioles did make that move. But we also got some roster news from Tony Mansolino earlier this week. He said the Orioles are going to move to a 6-man rotation for the entirety of September. That's going to happen when Tyler Wells gets back. Had his elbow surgery along with Kyle Bradish last June, was a little further behind Bradish in his rehab, but he made his final rehab start in AAA Norfolk on Wednesday night, and it went well. 6 1/3 innings, 2 runs, 6 hits, 5 Ks, a walk and a homer. He was up to 90 pitches was Wells. Fastball sat 92, up to 94. That's fine velo for him as a starter. Through all 5 of his pitches, his changeup was filthy, got 7 whiffs on 12 swings against that thing. And it's most likely, not guaranteed, but most likely that Wells will make his season debut on Tuesday. That's September 2nd in San Diego against the Padres. He's, of course, been out for a while. And Tony Mansolino said earlier this week that no one will pitch on regular rest for the remainder of the year. That is what a 6-man rotation does for you. It gives everybody an extra day of rest. I'm totally fine like that with this season. Not really meaning anything for the Orioles as a whole for the remainder of the year. And it is a lot easier to go to a 6-man rotation in September because remember, on September 1st, the rosters expand by 2 spots. You can add an extra hitter and an extra pitcher. And when you add that extra pitcher, you go from 13 to 14 pitchers. a 6-man rotation still leaves you with a regular 8-man bullpen. Usually during the year, if you go to a 6-man rotation, you got to shrink your bullpen by one reliever. That can cause some problems. In September, it makes it a whole lot easier. It makes sense with Bradish and Wells back from the elbow surgery. So it'll be, if everybody stays healthy, a 6-man rotation of Kyle Bradish, Cade Povich, Dean Kramer, Trevor Rogers, Tomoyuki Sugano, and Tyler Wells to finish off the season. I still think Tyler Wells is a bullpen piece long-term for this Orioles team, but he's been built up as a starter. He wants to start. There's no reason to not give him a chance to start down the stretch this year. Let him even come to spring training next year as a starter, and then see what else the Orioles have, see how it works out. I think ultimately he'll be a good reliever, maybe even a closer option for this team next year. But you want to keep guys as starters as long as you can to see if they can work out there, because starters are just more valuable than relievers. And so that's why the Orioles keeping him in that spot, at least for now. And the Bradish comeback was more exciting, but also very excited for Tyler Wells to come back. He's been a big part of this Orioles pitching staff for the last 4 years, and it'll be cool to see him back on that mound next week. One more piece of stuff to get to. We haven't done the Orioles Bullpen Trust Rankings in a couple of weeks, so let's get back to it, right? It's a revolving door of relievers for this Orioles team. Who do we trust? Who do we maybe trust? Who do we not trust right now? We'll break that down to finish off the show and the week coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in, right? It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And for me and for my wife, Monarch Money makes it really easy to kind of look at things together and see where our financials sit. So don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege. So to finish off today's episode and the week here on the show, we get to the latest edition of the Orioles Bullpen Trust Power Rankings. If you're unfamiliar, we take all the Orioles relievers in the current bullpen as of time of recording and put them into 3 categories. There is the trust category, which means if this guy goes out there in a high leverage spot right now, I trust that he's going to get the job done. There is the maybe trust category. Bunch of reasons why a guy could be there. They haven't pitched a whole lot. Maybe they were in trust and they've been struggling. Maybe they're getting a little bit better coming up from don't trust. Maybe I trust them in low leverage and medium leverage, but not high leverage. Bunch of different scenarios there. And then there's don't trust. That's pretty self-explanatory. When they come into the game, it better be a blowout. Either way, I'm not feeling good about how they're going to throw the ball. I've got 3 relievers in the trust category. The last time I did this Bullpen Trust Power Ranking was August 14th. So these are their stats since August 15th, since the last time I did the rankings. First one in trust is Dietrich N. 7 2/3 innings of 4 run balls, 6 hits, 8 Ks, 3 walks, and 2 homers. Since then, he's looked good in multiple roles. He's got a save. He was great as an opener on Wednesday night. He's actually better against righties than lefties, which makes him versatile as a pitcher. I love the fastball changeup combination. He's a go-to guy in that bullpen right now. Rico Garcia is my second pitcher in trust. 4 1/3 innings, 2 runs, 7 hits, 5 Ks, and 1 walk since August 15th. He did give up the go-ahead run in the 8th inning on Thursday, but him escaping that bases-loaded jam in Boston was incredible. The stuff looks really good now. The fastball has like elite top 10 in baseball ride on it. That curveball, that death ball grip, the movement is amazing. I'm really loving what I'm seeing from Rico Garcia. And then into the trust category for, I believe, the first time is Grant Wolfram. 5 scoreless innings, 3 hits, 5 Ks, 1 walk since I did this last. He's been great lately. He just really hasn't gotten any high leverage spots. Now, he has a few high leverage chances earlier this year when he looked okay. So that's why I feel good enough to put him right at the edge of trust. If he can just look good in one high-ish leverage spot, boom, he's securely in trust the way he's throwing the ball right now. On to the maybe trust category, where I have 4 relievers at the moment. The first one is Keegan Aiken. 7 1/3 innings of 2 run ball, 2 hits, 5 Ks, 2 walks, and 2 homers since the last rankings. If he's going to be in the middle innings, he's in trust. But as we saw on Wednesday night as well, the Orioles are going to put him in super high leverage to close out games, and it's gone well a few times, but generally not going well when he's in those spots. So if Mancelino is going to keep using him in the ninth in those spots, he's going to be in maybe trust. If he goes back to where he belongs, the 5th, 6th, and 7th, Aiken, I will easily put him back into the trust category. Also moving back up to maybe trust is Corbin Martin. He was very much in don't trust 2 weeks ago, but since then, 5 2/3, 1 run, 7 hits, 7 Ks, and no walks is the big one. He had some crazy bad command early on, but he has recovered from those 2 disastrous outings he had a few weeks back. I want to see one more good high leverage outing, and he's jumping back into the trust category. Kade Strowd is also in maybe trust. The right-hander, 4 innings, 1 run, 3 hits, 2 Ks, 3 walks, and a homer over the last couple of weeks. Was really good Thursday with those 2 perfect innings, but has barely pitched lately. I just want to see him pitch a little bit more before I would move him up to trust. And he has looked a little shaky when he's gotten kind of his highest leverage spots late in games protecting leads. And then the final guy in maybe trust is Shawn Dubin. Orioles debut on Thursday, coming over off waivers from the Astros. 1-2-3 inning with 3 groundouts in the 9th. That's not a lot to judge on. So it was good enough where you're not going to put him in don't trust, but it's only 1 inning, so he's certainly not going up to trust. That is where he sits in maybe trust. That leaves 1 pitcher in don't trust, and I think you know who it is. This might be the first time. I've been doing these Bullpen Trust Power Rankings for at least 3 years, at least since this guy's been on the team. I'd have to go back. It's possible he's been in there before, maybe even earlier this season, but this has got to be one of the first times that Yennier Cano is in the don't trust category, and he's the only guy I've got in there right now. Last couple of weeks, 4 innings, 2 runs, 3 hits, 2 Ks, 4 walks, a hit batter, and a homer. Command looks bad. Changeup is bad. The velo is down. There is a definite concern with Cano right now. I would absolutely love to see him finish this season strong over the final month, but he also has minor league options, and they've already used one of them this year. So I wouldn't mind him just going down to Norfolk for a couple of weeks, trying to reset things, work on things, and it gives you a chance for another arm to get more innings. Like Yarmil Geraldo is back in AAA. It'd give him a chance to be back up here. Maybe you could get a chance to look at Chase McDermott or Jose Espada, who haven't come back up yet. I think he needs a little reset here. I still believe in him long-term, but it's been a little ugly lately. I don't want him pitching in high leverage at the moment. As crazy as that sounds, because it feels like you look at the names in this bullpen and you say, oh yeah, Yennier Cano's the best reliever in there. It's been the opposite lately for Cano and for the Orioles. That'll do it for today. That'll do it for the week on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube page. And remember to subscribe, follow, 5-star rating and a review wherever you listen. It really helps out the show. Orioles and Giants this weekend. The O's hit the West Coast for a little swing out there. 10:15 tonight. This game is on Apple TV Plus, not on MASN. Dean Kramer goes against the lefty Robbie Ray. Sad that Brandon Hyde is not still here to yell at Robbie Ray. Then 7:15 on Saturday. That game's on Fox, another national game. Trevor Rogers. Everybody can get their eyes on Trevor Rogers on Saturday night. It is TBD for the Giants. And then on Sunday at 4:05, Tomoyuki Sugano takes on Justin Verlander. Also been a disappointing season for the Giants. They did play a good series this week, I will say, against the Cubs, but otherwise they are still 66-68, kind of floundering around 500, which is what the San Francisco Giants have done for the past couple of years. The O's will get them on the West Coast. I do love some good West Coast late night weekend baseball for the Orioles. But I will be back on Monday recapping everything you need to know from this Orioles-Giants series. Until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.